Do you know what? It's mad because like I listen to what you've just said. Like, I don't ever think I've ever told my dad I love him.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. Like, I don't think I've ever told him that.
Yeah.
And the first time my dad told me he loved me, I was like in my late 20s. Do you know what I'm saying? So like almost turning 30 or whatever.
To my beautiful girls, your smiles warm my heart. You turn bad days into good evenings. I promise to listen, to share, to guide, to provide, to protect, to love. All that is mine is yours. This is Stories by Emeka, the Fatherhood series.
So Clem, welcome.
Yo.
Welcome.
Yes.
Long time.
Long time.
How you been?
Yeah, I've been good, man.
Yeah?
I can't complain. Yeah, I've been good. Busy end of work and whatnot, but yeah, all good, man. It's better to be occupied, right?
Yeah, exactly. What am I saying? Easy, medium, hard?
Listen, let's just keep it very real. Like,
Okay, cool.
let's keep
Say no
it.
more, say
Yeah,
no more.
like, I mean, yeah.
Alright. So what, are you taking up the whole 2 weeks for your half term, or are you still doing some bits at home?
Yeah, I'm pretty much taking them all off.
Yeah.
I'm all but one day.
Okay.
So I'm gonna try and hold. Well, not trying. I'm gonna hold a workshop for revision for some of the students that are doing their GCSE maths. So
Okay.
yeah. So all but one.
Machine says I'm up first.
Okay.
But yeah, welcome to Fatherhood Conversations.
Yeah, man. Pleasure.
You know,
Honestly.
so one of the things I wanted to sort of discuss throughout sort of today is looking at different aspects of fatherhood, and yeah, just talking about your journey in regards to fatherhood and some of the ups and downs of this lifelong journey that we've got on us. But let's keeping it light to start off with. Just want you to sort of describe yourself. 3 words you'd use to describe yourself as a father.
3 words.
Yeah.
Okay. I would say a protector.
Yep.
Would definitely be one of them. Look at this guy.
Just warming up.
Hitting it like a machine. Like a machine.
No.
Yeah, protector I would say definitely is one.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Selfless.
Selfless. Okay.
Yeah, selfless would be another one. And devoted.
Devoted, yeah.
Devoted.
Okay.
Yeah, devoted.
Your kids, how many kids you got?
So I've got two.
Yeah.
Two
What are the ages?
boys. Two boys. Firstborn, 13.
30. Oh, that's
Yeah.
soon
yeah.
touch manhood.
Yeah. Like for real.
you
Like
ready for that?
I say 13, but he's moving like 16, 17 type of thing. So
Why is that the case? As soon as they hit teenagers, they just want to speed up the process.
Yeah. It's mad because when I was growing up, I definitely didn't feel like that at all. I was still wanting to, me and my brother still wanted to just play outside and on the bikes or football or go into the forest, adventure, whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas we all know the impact that social media has, and I think that's what speeds up a few things.
It's true.
You know what I mean? So
Definitely. So a lot of the influences that they have around them as well.
100%.
And then you said devoted.
Yeah, devoted. Like, yeah, man. I guess there's various different words you can use as well to kind of like describe that, you know, in terms of always being there, reliable, showing commitment.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of them things where it's got to be done.
You're up.
Like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's got to be done. It's got to be done like without even thinking. Do you know, like sometimes, you know, when you wake up. You don't even have to think about brushing your teeth, do you? Do you know what I mean? It's just like installed, it's embedded. So when I say devoted, it's like the moment, for me in a way, the moment that my child came out, it was like like impact straight away. Like life changing perspective. Yeah.
But Clem, before you hit that ball,
Yeah.
I have to notify you
All right.
of a little thing that we've got going on here.
All right.
As you can see, Lee's at the top of the leaderboard. Dr. Nick is there. I had Ola, the comedian, on yesterday.
Okay.
So he's now moved into third place. So, and then we've got Bola, who's 92 yards, didn't even go into the 3 digits.
Okay.
So we're gonna see what you can do today.
Yeah.
See what Clem can do.
Yeah. Listen, we're gonna keep it.
Yeah.
We're gonna try. You know what I mean?
Listen, we're all amateurs at the end of the day. So it's all
I'm
good.
a novice.
You know?
Let's see what we could do. Let's see what we can do. Do you know? Let's see what happens.
Concentration.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. you know, it's false. You know,
Full start.
Full start.
But yeah, in terms of how old was you when you first became a father?
I was 24. Yeah.
So that's still relatively young age.
Yeah.
And so those are the days where it's turn up time. Uni's done, you're earning money now, and then this comes in. So how did that? What was your life before like? And then how did that news and because it's life changing, like you said. So how did it change the way you are now sort of moving before you had your child?
Well, when the funny thing is, when I first found out, I was having a child, I was still in uni.
Okay.
I missed a couple of years,
Yeah.
and that was due to I was part of music. I was heavily involved with music at that time as well.
Yeah.
So my studies kind of took a fallback in a sense. So I missed a couple of years. So I was still in uni when I got told I was going to be a father. So when I first got told, no word of a lie, I was scared.
Yeah.
I was scared. I was very, very fearful because I was in a position where a time in my life, a period where things were really going well, like things were moving in a good sort of healthy kind of direction, and getting told that news, it was almost as if the world had caved in. Do you know what I mean? Like everything had to stop. It was scary. I'm not gonna lie. Partly again being part of being brought up in a Christian home.
Okay. So yeah, I guess a few things there. So when were you in a secure relationship? Like were you together with the lady that you was with at the time, or was it just a casual relationship?
Yeah, no. So we were together. We were
Okay.
together, fully confirmed, official together. But I guess it was different in a sense where it was very early in the relationship.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I want to say 5-6 months into relationship was when I found out. So
Yeah.
again, it's the relationship is still going through.
It's still fresh, isn't it?
Fresh,
Still
and it's
new.
honeymoon
Honeymoon.
period.
Honeymoon.
Do you know what I mean? It's fresh. It's still going through its honeymoon period. So to get that news,
Yeah.
it was really,
Yeah.
it was very, very hard to take in, hard to digest. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. It was
And
hard.
then a bit at home in regards to Christian home,
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
What was their take?
Yeah, listen, I'll be honest, man, it was difficult. Like, my mum, I remember telling my mum, in fact, I couldn't tell my mum by myself.
Okay.
It was that serious for me.
I had to bring reinforcements.
I had to be moved. I had to, man. My brother was in uni at the time.
Yeah, just make sure there's no plates, nothing breakable next to her.
Yeah.
Hey.
My brother was in uni, and I had to call him. I broke the news to him first, and I had to call him, and I said, "Listen, I need you to be here, because I just don't know what the outcome's gonna be."
Yeah.
And I just needed that support. My brother's always been there, 100% through thick and thin.
That's good, man.
So he came down, and I remember breaking the news to my mum. She didn't have no words to say.
Yeah. Does that feel worse sometimes? It's like that. 'Cause I remember growing up, it's like my mum, she would shout about certain things, but then the periods where she doesn't say nothing, I'm like, this is not what we're used to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't deal with the disappointment version. Do you know what I mean? Let's do the shot.
It was.
Do you know what I mean?
It was uncomfortable, because like you said, we know what's gonna happen. You usually can like predict like what the outcome's gonna be, how they're gonna sort of like respond.
Yeah.
But in this case, it was completely left. It was an outlier. Do you know what I mean? And I've never really seen this before. So then I knew like how much I kind of disappointed my mum in that sense. Like it really kind of hit home.
Okay.
So it took 2 days for mum to actually eventually speak. But when she did vocal and she did sort of like express how she was feeling, it was still kind of supportive. It was really supportive.
She needed time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you know, which is fair because you need time to process. And I guess as parents now, you could probably understand, you know, her thinking and her mentality at that time.
100%. No, 100%. Yeah, it was. Now, obviously, now you know, looking hindsight and looking back, like I definitely understand why it took her that time to sort of like just reevaluate and you know, give her thoughts.
Okay. Let's see if you can.
I need to. I need to up the level. I need to up the level for
if
real.
Not, you're gonna be below Bolo boy. Okay.
Yeah. See, it's
not bad. It's
not
just
bad.
you just need the right hit.
How many shots do you get?
So you get 5 in a row.
5 in a row. Okay.
Before it's my turn. Oh, 62. Just need 30 more, and then and then you can be Bolo.
Yeah. Talk about pressure, you know.
You know what I'm saying? But
Talk
yeah.
about pressure, yeah.
So okay, so that's happened now. 9 months later, baby's here. How did you, I guess, experience that point of fatherhood? I assume that you were there when your son was born.
100%. I had no choice really.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, with my mum, like being supportive or not, like that was always gonna be like, it was always gonna be the way. Do you know what I mean? I didn't see it no other way. Listen, even just going back, if I go back slightly, it took me a good, I would say, 4 or 5 months to really kind of like adjust, like becoming a father, because like I said, I was scared. So there was various different emotions coming out during that period of like adjusting to fatherhood. It took me a while, like it really took me a while to get my head around. And then once I sort of like, it locked in and I realized this is what's gonna happen, like I'm gonna be responsible. I'm gonna be responsible for a human being. Like I then started to process it, and because again, I was only working part-time, so you know, there was lots of things going on. So 9 months later, like you said, my firstborn coming out, it was just definitely one of the happiest days of my life. Like
that instant joy, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, we knew beforehand, like prior, you know, it was gonna be a boy. So I kind of needed to know that first. I kind of needed to know if it was gonna be a boy, if it was gonna be a girl, to sort of like get my mind right.
Okay.
I needed to know that, and then
I've never had that. You know, I've never needed to know.
Is it?
Yeah, literally everything has always been literally at the point of giving birth.
Yeah, it's crazy because I didn't do that for my second child.
Okay.
But for my firstborn, I did. So, it was happiest day. Honestly, I know it's a cliche, and I know probably everyone said it the same thing before. Do you know what I mean?
How you feel is how you feel. You know.
There is no word, like there's just no word to describe it. Like it was just, man, it was the most glorious day, man. You know, even now, do you know what I mean? Even now, just thinking about it, like, it was just mad.
Emotional,
and
isn't it? A lot of things.
It makes you like understand like how the body works as well. Do you know what I mean? Like,
because being in that room, especially at that age, it's like we learned this in school, but they didn't tell me it was like this. Do you know what I mean? And so it's like understanding and seeing that miracle of life happening. There's a lot of emotions centered around that. But I want to piggyback in terms of where you said that 4 months before you really grasped what's happened. What were you like in terms of were you sort of emotionally absent to the fact that you were a father? Obviously, you had the day of the delivery and all of the emotions, but that now responsibility aspect hasn't clicked in for that 4 months. So what were you like in that 4 months before this sort of light bulb switch came on to say, you know what, game on?
I was all over the place. I was all over the place. Like, I was really trying to see if this is what I really wanted. Do you know what I mean? I was angry at certain points. You know, there was times where I felt.
What was that anger about? What was the driving force to that anger?
I think it came from a place where I felt I wasn't ready.
Okay.
Like, I felt I wasn't ready. Like.
So was that anger sort of centered around yourself? What have I done?
Yeah, because you know, you kind of premeditate how you want things to happen. You know, you want to be in a stable job. You want to be in maybe marriage. You want to, you know, you want to have certain things secure before, you know, you kind of do that deed. So because I felt like I wasn't there at that place whatsoever, that's, for me, that's where a lot of the anger came from, you know, because I felt like I was being forced into that position, whereas it didn't happen kind of like naturally, authentic. But that's on me, you know what I mean? That's
so
me. Like,
how did that transpire between you and the mother of your child at the time? Was it anger? Was that sort of being displaced towards her, towards the relationship and things?
Yeah. I made, like, you know, this wouldn't be right if I was to try and, you know, sweet it all up or whatnot. But like I wasn't the nicest guy. Like, I wasn't. I was angry towards her. I was making life difficult. You know, for her. And you know, I was really trying to have more conversations about, is this what we want to do? Like, so in a sense, like putting pressure, you know, like on her and stuff like that. And yeah, like, again, looking back, you know, I now know that was selfish, you know, very, very selfish of me. But you're young, you know, you know, your emotions come out and you don't really sort of rationalize it. It's very instinctive, you know, when your emotions are quite high. So yeah, anger, a lot of anger towards her, a lot of resentment in a way. To a certain degree.
And then towards your son, during this 4 months period, what was that like? And what was the setup like as well? Were you living together, or you had to go and see her at her house? And what was the setup?
I was living at my mum's at the time. She was living at her mum's at the time. So, like I said, the relationship was still quite fresh, innit? So there was no sort of living arrangements where we were together. And so I'd visit her a lot. And you know, vice versa, she'll come to my mum's, etc. And yeah, like it was a lot of back and forth, or a lot of like neutral meeting points, you know, to talk and discuss, etc. So yeah, it wasn't like,
because of that setup. Because I always wonder, in terms of when you're not living with your child, did you feel connected? The fact that you had to go into a space where he was in, and you weren't in that space together.
What do you mean when he was born? Like from when he was born?
Yeah, because obviously you said that she was living where she was living, you were living where you were living, and obviously you have to go to see him. Essentially. And so did you feel a disconnect because you weren't all together and you weren't with your son on a day-to-day basis?
Nah, I'll be honest, I never felt disconnected, and I think that's because I was there a lot. So, again, I was only working part-time. So if I wasn't working, I'll be there, type of thing. I just kind of like took that role on. I did not want to be absent just for the fact that we're not living together. I'm not going to use that as an excuse. Like, I wanted to be there as much as I could, because I don't want to miss out on anything. I don't want, you know, my son to miss out on anything. So I was there a lot. A lot. So I did not feel disconnect at all whatsoever. If anything, it made me kind of like more determined for the fact that we were living apart. So I needed to be there as much as I could. So that's what I did.
Cool. Let me let you take your...
Yeah. You know, I need the concentration. Like, for me, this isn't my realm, you know?
Let you take your 2 shots. You getting the hang of it, yeah?
She's like, getting there. Just need that lift., man.
So in terms of frameworks, of fatherhood? Because what I noticed is when you were talking about telling your mother, you didn't mention your dad in there. So was he in the picture? Was he a model of fatherhood that when you became a father, were you now searching for people around you that you can say, you know what kind of father am I going to be? So obviously you mentioned your mum when you had to go and speak to her about this life-changing news. Where was your father in the picture, and what was kind of, who were you kind of looking to now that you're going to become a father?
Yeah, so my dad was living in Birmingham at that time.
Yeah.
I believe. I want to say Birmingham. If it weren't Birmingham, it was somewhere in Essex. I can't actually remember, like, to pinpoint it. But yeah, my dad was like the last, not the last one I told, but yeah, I told him like kind of later on, that type of thing. Why is that? I'm not too sure. I mean, my mum and dad, they split up.
So they were already split up during this period?
Yeah, they were already split up, yeah. So just before I was going into secondary school, they split up. So just before I started year 7, they split up. So,
when that happened, did you feel like, obviously he's moved and doing what he's doing, so obviously for you not to tell him straight away or be at the back of your mind, is that because of your now ongoing relationship or lack of relationship with him during this period?
Yeah, it's a hard one to unravel, because like I can't ever really say my dad was an absent father, because I know I could pick up the phone and call him like anytime. He'll pick up. You know, if I'm in a certain situation, he'll help me out. If I needed something, he'll help me out. Do you know what I mean? So I can't ever say he wasn't absent, do you know what I'm saying, in my life. But I feel like because I was present more with my mum, like physically, you know that saying, innit, like out of sight, out of mind type of thing. So I think that's what it was. Like the relationship that I had with my mum was more sort of like apparent because I was living with my mum to a certain extent. So I didn't really, I don't know, I felt more, I don't know what it was, I felt more relaxed telling my dad, because
you didn't feel any pressure that there's much input that he can have that you're going to care about. Was that it? Because when you spoke about your mum, it's like there was a deep concern about how she would take you, whereas you just said that for your dad, you know, is what it is, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where does that stem from?
Do you know what? Now that you're saying it, maybe like subconsciously, like maybe because obviously my dad's, you know, he left, done what he needed to do. He got into a new relationship. Like he's making his choices. So maybe subconsciously I felt, well, you know, he's done his thing. I'm doing my thing, and you know, I'll kind of tell you when I tell you, that type of thing. But at the same time, I knew I wasn't gonna get. I knew I weren't really gonna get like kind of like a backlash from my dad. Like, to be honest, I knew I was gonna get some form of support. Do you know what I mean? So maybe again, that's another factor why I felt more relaxed. Like I didn't feel really pressured in telling him. I knew I could wait, tell him when I felt like it, and you know, the outcome for my dad was gonna be the same, like how he would have responded. So
no, that's fine. So sort of fast forward a little bit now. So you have your son, and at what point did your sort of relationship start to break down in regards to moving from, obviously, you know, doing this together, still in a relationship, and now sort of having to continue to obviously be parents for your son, but now obviously having to have an arrangement towards that. So at what age did that happen for your son?
So after my son turned 1, it kind of dawned on me that I didn't love, you know, my son's mum anymore. And also I got to a point where I kind of realized that it takes a lot more than love for, do you know what I'm saying, a relationship to work. So, you know, I didn't want to carry on the relationship based out of because you know what I mean, obviously, like I know certain people that just stay in relationships because of the children. And sometimes doesn't always work, but sometimes it's not healthy to do that. You know, it can have like a sort of like detrimental effect on a child. So, you know, it took me a lot of courage to say like I can't do that. You know, because the you know, the senses and the vibes, you know, the child's gonna pick it up, and I don't want that. You know, I'd rather be distant where we can be happy separately, and our child will benefit, you know, from that. You know, if he sees both parents happy, surely he's going to benefit more than the other option.
So this sort of still during that period of where you obviously you looking back and sort of reflecting. You were saying that there was a lot of anger. Has that subsided now? That you're now thinking clearly in regards to moving forward, you know, this is actually not going to work for me. Or was this reaction still based off that anger that you are in this situation at this point?
Yeah. Nah, I know it can easily sort of like look like that. But nah, there was absolute no malice, no anger whatsoever on that decision. That decision was purely based on would the relationship work based on, do you know what I mean, like what we have, and I had to like really analyze it and say no, it would like it wouldn't. Again, like, you know, I said love for me personally is not the only thing. It's important 100%, do you know what I mean, and it's gonna be the forefront, but I do feel like there's other things, other ingredients that it takes for a relationship to work. You know, morals and principles and values like are something that I hold up as well in high regard. So when certain things don't match, then you have to kind of like be honest with yourself and brave enough to say, yeah, this isn't gonna work. Like instead of maybe trying and implementing more damage and more cracks and I don't think it's gonna be healthy. So the decision came like, you know, in 5 years time or 2 years time, 3 years time, like where do I see, do you know what I mean, like the relationship.
How does she respond to you essentially breaking up the relationship? Because with some women become salty, some women might be fine with it. How does she take it, and then how did that affect your co-parenting relationship? Because when I say some women might become salty, for instance, especially when you move on into a new relationship and all of a sudden it's like they change because of how the relationship ended, and then obviously that might now start affecting how you co-parent and start affecting your child, which is what you don't want to happen as well. So what was her response to that breakup?
She didn't take it well. And she probably felt that I maybe misleaded in a sense. So she didn't take it well at all. And to a certain degree, I understand why. I understand why, because it's not as if to say I never wanted it to work, but again, I just came to a realization like it wasn't. But she didn't feel that way. She didn't feel the same way I did. So there was definitely like a friction, like a resistance, where, you know, it made life definitely difficult. Because it's like when one person wants one thing and the other person wants another, you keep kind of like clashing and bumping the heads. So life then became like not pretty, like between us. Do you know what I mean? We were definitely like squabbling a lot, arguing a lot, and it was always silly things, like little things.
It's that minute things that just all of a sudden just turn into the biggest things, isn't it?
The things you wouldn't normally sort of like argue about or bring to the forefront or bring to the table, it was certain things we were arguing about. So it made life difficult.
How did that affect you fathering your child at this point? And did you consider what this might do to your role and responsibility as a father in terms of obviously the process of now breaking up the relationship? Especially, I think you said your son was about a year old? Yeah. So how did that affect sort of your roles and responsibility as a father moving forward?
Yeah, so I kind of made a promise to myself, like, I don't ever want to argue in front of, my child or children even. I made that promise to myself that I'd never want to do that. I made that clear as well, with his mum, that I didn't want to do that. But sometimes, again, emotions, it takes over, you're not thinking straight, and things do happen. Now, I'll be honest, like, it didn't happen. I can probably remember 3 times at most where we would have argued, like, do you know what I mean, in front of him. And every single time, like, I just felt guilty, like I felt really, really bad, really sort of like down on myself about it. Because again, it's not something, or not image, or something I want him to be around. So in terms of my relationship with him, in a way, it didn't affect it so much because I was able to take my son away, bring him to my mum's. A lot of the time, he was with me. Again, I was working part-time, so he was with me a lot of the times where his mum was fortunate to find a full-time job. So in that regards, I was happy to like have him for the majority of the time. So I count myself lucky. Like, I really, really count my blessings in that sense, because for a long period of time, I was having him a lot, whilst his mum was at work, or if he was
building that bond with him.
Building that bond. Like, I can't fault how much of a strong bond that is now created for me and him. You know what I mean? Till this day, it's like it's almost like them days again type of thing. Do you know what I mean? So, luckily, the fights and the bickering, all the negativity, it never really had an effect on him. And I'm blessed for that. And again, maybe it's just because I was in a position where I'm able to take him away. One thing I would always, commend her for and hold her in high praises. She was never a mother who would be like, oh, you're not taking him, or you're not doing this, or you can't. That was never,
not
ever.
Her character.
It never, ever, do you know what I mean? Like, came out like that, never. So, in that sense, I was able to like have him as much as I wanted. And that's something that I did. So, it never really affected how I would father him. Parenting, because you have to co-parent now. Different houses will have different rules, etc. So, we had to find a balance. Didn't always meet eye to eye on certain stuff, but majority of stuff we were able to like come to an agreement on certain things. So
no, because I think looking at the journey that you've been on, it's been like an emotional roller coaster and a lot of learning. One of the things, especially again similar to you, first child at 24, and when you kind of go back and think about the conversations that you were having with who you're with at the time, maybe because of the age that we were at, you're not having those lifelong kind of conversation in regards to how you want to raise a child. Is a child even in the conversation, which probably wasn't, especially with a new relationship and things like that. So do you feel like we need to do more to introduce some of these conversations, especially, in the early 20s, for instance? It's like once you are now in a position of sort of leaving university or now having employment, earning money, and now getting into some serious relationships, do we need to do more to have some more serious conversations in regards to before bringing sort of children into the world? And what would those conversations look like in terms of making sure that people actually fully understand what they're getting themselves into, and rather than just reacting to it. So obviously in our 30s now, we've matured and we can now have those conversations, but people who are in their sort of early 20s might be sort of doing what we've done and having to go through some of those stresses that we've had to go through in terms of understanding ourselves, understanding what fatherhood is, and going through all of the dramas and so on and so forth. So like, how do we make sure that we're having these important conversations, or at least letting the younger generations know that this is what you need to be thinking about, what you need to be discussing, so history doesn't keep repeating itself. You know?
Yeah. Well, listen, Emeka, it's things like this, innit? It's things like this that we need to see more of. You know, that's accessible on the internet, where people of all ages can access and take an insight on how it really is. Because that conversation, like with young people, like is very, very important. Because you can't, like, no one can predict the future. Do you know what I'm saying? But you can at least get knowledge and wisdom from someone who's been through it before. Do you know what I mean? So we need to have definitely like more of these talks with young people. And this platform, like what you're doing, is a great way to kind of like start that. Do you know what I mean? It's very necessary. It's very, very important, because there are key things that you're going to be tested. Like you're going to be you're gonna like really see who's your friends, who's around for you. You're gonna really know. You're gonna find out more about yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like, and you're gonna go through loads of different experiences, emotions. So if a young person can be like guided, or at least kind of given some kind of a blueprint, then that will sort of like minimize, certain, like mistakes or certain thought-provoking things that you might not need to think of. Do you know what I mean? So it's 100% necessary.
Because
100%
it's
necessary.
not to say that people who are in a more stable situation don't eventually break up and now having to go through the whole co-parents, and people who have been married, end up getting divorced, and obviously people go their own separate ways and still have to figure out how to co-parent. But in terms of the research, always tells us that when you're in a more stable space, that's the more conducive environment to raise a child in, and type of thing. But what I don't think we think about, which should go part of that sort of education around sex in general, is in terms of understanding and building a platform with somebody that, okay, can I see myself, are we compatible first for each other? Do our values align when it comes to children? But again, because of the period that you're in, especially in your early 20s, you're not having those conversations. You know what I mean? And so when people are in their sort of early 30s, late 20s, it's like the conversation is now steered around financial planning together. Do you know what I mean? How are we going? What kind of parent are we going to be? Are we doing private school? Do you know what I mean? It's like all of these conversations that allow for you to now cultivate and grow a child together, but at that early ages where it's just more lust, irresponsibility, freedom. All of these things just mix it into the pot, and then next minute there's a child involved who's a human being that now has to navigate through two parents that might not be in conjunction with each other. As one of the poets now says, when the two parents are not in conjunction, the child grows up off schedule. Do you know what I mean? And so it's like, things that they should be doing are not happening at the time that it should be happening at. So I think for me, it's looking back, it's something that a message that I definitely want to share with a lot of young fathers, a lot of young people just in general, and having a conversation, because it goes beyond just being able to put a condom on. Do you know what I mean? It's more about the emotional aspect and the deep conversations that need to be had to understand the gravity, because once the child comes, that's only phase one. There are many, many different phases that you have to now be prepared for in order to be the best father, to be the best parent you can for that child, because as they grow, they now have emotions, feelings, and they respond to you. Whereas when they're babies, it's like you're just now the full provider and protector, and literally you're just responding to the child. But now there's different levels of
Different
this
levels,
parenting thing,
different
isn't it?
avenues,
And are you emotionally prepared for that? That emotional maturity that you need to become a father, and that you need to cultivate this child. And then having that community around you is also important. So fast forward into...
Wait, let me just stop you there, because
Okay.
you made a very good point.
Okay.
Like, you made a good point in terms of like having that conversation, and it's necessary, and we both agree on that. But when would you have that? So, a young person in a couple, in a relationship, at what point do they have that conversation? Because, you know, as I've already kind of said, you know, the honeymoon period could be different for different relationships. You know what I mean? But when is it important to have that?
I think, especially with this day and age where we underestimate how intelligent young people are. Speak to your 10s, speak to your 11s. It's like when you like, they are very, very sophisticated. They know what's happening, and some of them are a lot more advanced than we were because of they have access to everything, literally. So I don't want to condescend young people. So for me, I would say from 15, 16, same way when we're talking about finances, in terms of it's never too early to learn about how to manage your money, how to save money. That would have saved me destroying my credit at uni if somebody had intervened and you know, gave us these particular lessons. So I would say at that period we start introducing, because you're already talking about the biological side of things. Let's now talk about the emotional side of things as well. And I think exactly the mental side of things and what it really means to bring up a child at different levels. And I think that's a good time. And so obviously they grow up sort of their later teenage years understanding, having a deeper understanding. So when you are getting into relationships, you're now hoping that some of those conversations are now being had, not to the point of, oh, let's get married or things like that, but in terms of there's an element of being a bit more cautious with how you interact, especially sexually, knowing that, okay, we need to definitely make sure that we are protecting ourselves because we are nowhere near ready for what the consequences of what this could be. Do you know what I mean? Because again, it's the lust, it's the feeling, and so everybody puts that to the back burner. Then once the aftermath happens now, and that's when we're now reacting, and we're not really ready for what's happening.
And we're panicking, we're freaking out.
Exactly, you're freaking out. What's my mum gonna see? You know what I mean? The same thing, like you were saying. It's like it took me so long to knowing that at the point where I'm going to have a child. It took me long. Every time it was like procrastinating. It's like doing your assignment. I'm going to tell my mum and dad this week. Turn into 2-3 months. Do you know what I mean? Because there was never a good time. Because again, like you're talking about doing things the traditional way. Do you know what I mean? It's like you grow, you get your education, you get your job, you get married, then you have your children. So you're telling me you're skipping all of these steps, and you're telling, do you know what I mean? And the thing is, I've just moved out the house at the time because I knew exactly what my mum would say. As soon as you move out, look what happened.
No, you're right. 100%. So yeah, I mean, listen, the government bodies, the you know, schools and government like need to do more, as well as the whole sex education. You know, they need to like really kind of like take it up a notch and kind of like you said, look in depth in terms of the consequences of that sex education. Do you know what I mean? Like, what does that look like? What does that mean having a child? Mentally, physically, emotionally,
because on a selfish perspective, everyone's thinking about themselves. Once this happens, what does this mean for me financially? Am I ready? Am I prepared? Because the being that's being brought into the world is so young at the time, no one's thinking about further down the line. So once you have all of this instability around them, what they see, what they start to feel growing up, could be resentment, it can be hate. Do you know what I mean? And all of these other things that now play a factor to what the norm is for this particular child. You know, and so when somebody says, oh, like we're having a baby, and it's like, oh, people say, oh, you've ruined your life, all of these kind of things. Not necessarily, but in terms of what does that mean for this child in 3 years? What does that mean for this child in 4 years? What foundations have I put in place to make sure that this child gets a well-rounded education, to make sure that this child feels loved all the time? And so, that's my question to you in terms of now that your son is now sort of entering manhood.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Being a
adulthood,
full-blown
manhood.
being a full-blown teenager. How has your relationship sort of developed with him over the years? You know, now that he's now been able to respond to you as a young man, to your parents and to the advice that you're given or whatever it is that that you do on a regular basis with him in terms of spending time, quality time. What is your dynamics with him at this point in time?
Yeah, listen, like, do you know what is what's like really sort of like overwhelming to hear is like, whenever I'm in a place and I'm with my son, whether people know me or not, close ones, far ones, they always, in some shape or form, always will say, like, you can tell the bond you've got with your son is like, strong. It's immaculate, it's strong, do you know what I mean? And I know that's come from, obviously, his early years, you know, having that opportunity to like spend a lot of time with him, do you know what I mean? The normal, you know, take him to nursery, pick him up from nursery, feed him, clothe him, bath him, you know, having the opportunity to do that full time, because like I said, I was working part time, you know, definitely like set the foundations, you know what I mean, of our bond going forward. Obviously throughout primary school, you know what I mean, it was no different really, do you know what I mean, taking him to and from like primary school, you know, so always like being there at every opportunity, again, helped our bond. And because for me it's like, and I know sometimes there are like absent fathers and whatnot, and a lot of you know, a lot of children kind of like obviously miss out on that aspect. And I think for me, my dad wasn't around to a certain extent, or didn't really show enough emotion, do you know what I'm saying? Like, being, you know, an African, you know, like in heritage, you know what I mean? Like, the African parents don't really show, well, African dads especially, like, don't really show that much kind of affection or feeling. So I immediately knew, like, from the off, like, that's not how I want to be. Do you know what I mean? Like, I need my son to feel the emotion, know the emotion. I want him to know, like, that I love him, whether it's like me telling him, whether it's me physically, you know, holding him, hugging him, kissing him. Do you know what I mean? Like, he needs to feel the emotion. He needs to know what that feels like. Do you know what I mean? Like, as well as being told, you know, type of thing. So that's something that was set in stone from off, and that's something that I've always done from early, even till now. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's 13, and even till now, like, he's like, he's always like,
is he getting to the point? He's like, Dad,
do you know what?
Cool down now,
he's
bro.
not, do you know what? He's not even like that, you know?
Oh, serious?
He's still like huggy, touchy, to the point where I'm like, get off me. Like, I'm telling him, get off me. Like, he's like, no, man. He's like, no, you're my dad, did it? You're my dad, did it?
No, that's,
do you know what I mean?
it.
Like, and he's been like that. Do you know what I mean? And I don't want that to end. Like, I don't see why it should have to. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's another kind of avenue, you know, maybe we can tap down into, but a lot of young males don't really kind of show.
Yeah, I wrote an article, I think about 2 years ago, and it was exploring this thing of love and fatherhood, obviously traditional old school dad. And I said to myself, I'm going to, because me and my dad have never said that to each other. I don't even think my dad knows what the word means. So I said, I was in the living room, and it was like the hardest thing for me to do. I was trying to find the right time. I just said, oh yeah, I love you, Dad. He was confused. He's like, what? Like, why are you talking? So then I repeated it, and he didn't understand what I was talking about. So I just left it. But I just needed to say it, because one of the points I was trying to make in my article is in terms of being more emotional and getting more fathers to get more emotional and be able to say these things. And so I can't advocate for something that I haven't done myself. So I thought, boom, let me be the one to break the barrier and actually say it, because yes, I know I've received love from my father, but through service, acts of service, in terms of like raising you, providing for you, so on and so forth. But like in terms of verbally saying it, that vocabulary doesn't exist. And so it was literally his reaction was the funniest things in terms of not even comprehending what it is that I'm talking about. So I'm there laughing my head off, but the guy just ignored me and just carried on watching the news.
Yeah, it's
Do
crazy.
you know what I mean? But
crazy.
the weird thing is, my friend, we're same age, and so at the end of the conversation with his dad, and this is probably similar to what's going to happen with you. He was like, "I love you, Dad." And so this is Nigerians, Yoruba as well. So that blew my mind. And I'm like, and that was part of the reason I wanted to do this thing. And so it's like that affection that he has with his dad was totally different from what I had. And so it's just the fact that he was just able to say that. And I remember watching this other show where I think it was like a Turkish man, and it was similar to myself. I think the father was on his deathbed, and then the interviewers were saying, "Aren't you going to say it to your father?" He goes, "My father can feel it and I can feel it as well, but we just can never say those words," type of thing. And where does that stem from, this act of not being able to show emotion, especially men? Do you know what I mean? Because with the daughters it's easy, everybody can easily do that. Do you know what I mean? But in terms of with the men, but it's good that you've incorporated that so you don't have to worry about it. So it's just now about maintaining it. But in terms of just our generation and a lot of people just not being able to be emotional with their male children, and I don't know if it really affects us down the line, but it's just always an interesting point of conversation. But it's good to know that you're part of the people who do have sons that are breaking down those barriers, that they can actually not only feel the love through your service, but like through what you're able to say verbally and actually tactfully.
Do you know what? It's mad because like I listen to what you've just said. Like I don't ever think I've ever told my dad I love him. Yeah. I'll be honest. Like I don't think I've ever told him that. Yeah. And the first time my dad told me he loved me, I was like in my late 20s. Do you know what I'm saying? So like almost turning 30 or whatever type of thing. And that's
how did that come about?
I think. So as I said before, like my dad used to live in Essex, and we always used to like sometimes meet up for like a bite to eat in what's that shopping centre? What's the shopping centre called?
Blue Water.
What's the other one? Lakeside. There's Lakeside, isn't it?
Yeah.
Blue Water. Yeah, it was Blue Water. So we always used to meet. Sometimes like after like I finish work or whatever, like I'll meet him or whatnot. Just to try and obviously keep that sort of like bond going and stuff like that. And I remember the girl that I was seeing at the time, like it wasn't going through a good a really good patch. So I was just telling him about it, asking for his advice and stuff like that. And I just remember like having that conversation with him, and he was just basically kind of reinforcing that he was always gonna be there for me, support him, like I can call him whenever. Yeah. And then just at the end, he was just like, like I love you, like type of thing. Do you know what I mean? And I didn't even say it back because it was the first time, and it was a kind of shock to me. Yeah. It was like,
is that what?
Like, who are you? Like, what? Like, do you know what I mean? But yeah, I guess my dad's, do you know what I mean? He's kind of like softened over the years, and I feel like he maybe in his own kind of like realizations realized like he now needs to kind of maybe show it. Because. And
again, it's I think people evolve as fathers, isn't it?
It's always
there's learning, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's
always.
Who knows what conversations he's had with his friends or seen what he's seen.
100%.
Who knows what his evolution has been around that. But at the point he said it, do you feel like you needed it? Growing up, like you've now received it.
That's a good point.
You know, because you've lived your life without hearing it
that's
ever.
A good point.
Same way. So it's like, but do you feel like you've needed it, or do you feel like that traditional African mentality in terms of I'm the breadwinner and I'm showing you love this way by providing the support, but I don't need to say it, or do you feel like you needed both?
Yeah, that's a very good point, because I've always known my dad loved me, but he just has his own way of showing it. Do you know what I mean?
But if we use that logic, I don't think women will ever run with that.
Yeah.
You tell your
Yeah.
woman, I don't need her to ever say that. What are you talking about? You know I love you.
No, that was,
Would that run, bro?
no, it won't run at all. It won't run.
Exactly. You know I love you. I don't need to say that every day. What are you talking about, man?
Yeah, no, you're right. It probably wouldn't. Nah, it probably wouldn't.
But we accept it because
Yeah.
that's we're men. We're supposed
Yeah.
to. We're not supposed to be feely, touchy.
Yeah,
all
yeah,
of
and
that
that's
stuff.
and that's all I saw from my dad. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and then from young, never really saw kind of like any affection. I can't, again, like I can't remember my dad hugging me.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
do you know what I mean? Like I don't ever remember him hugging me.
Yeah.
It's only again towards like 30s and whatnot. When we meet up for family functions and. We can embrace and we can really hug and take that moment in. But my early childhood, like growing up, I don't ever remember a hug at all whatsoever. Like so, I think that's in terms of in my own kind of experience, like that's where it kind of stems from. Like I've never seen it from a father figure from my dad. So, and if that's we're just talking about one situation here. So what about other fathers as well? It's especially from that culture as well. And I can only really relate to that because that is all I know. Type of thing. So that's where it's come from. But like I've already said, I knew immediately that is I felt we're sort of like we're not really giving our all in a sense. So like we're kind of holding back. Do you know what I mean? And I asked myself that question, like, is that fair? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, we're talking about a young being coming into the world. It's up to us to be, do you know what I mean, the forefront, the role model, to show them, teach them. So is that fair, holding that emotion back? Like, I have to answer, and it's no, type of thing. So I've always said, to my son, like, even from early, like, I love you. From early. Even if he didn't understand what it meant, like, I'm telling him, like, I love you.
He's just grown up hearing it.
He's grown up hearing it. Do you know what I mean? So now, whenever we're on the phone, it's embedded. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, without, like I said again, like, without even thinking, it automatically comes out, type of thing. So whenever he's on the phone, and he's going or whatever, he'll be like, yeah, I love you, Dad. And I'll be like, yeah, I love you too. And it's just, it's beautiful, man. Oh no, real talk.
That's it.
Real talk.
But in terms of moving on to new relationship, and now having your second child, talk to me about sort of that period in terms of, and how's that affected the dynamics of your first child and the mother of your first child as well, in terms of now being with someone new, and obviously your son having a sibling as well.
Yeah, so it's mad because it's kind of like history kind of repeated
If you
itself.
just come through here. So
It's kind of like history repeated itself. Do you know what I mean? Because new relationship, everything going well, and then, do you know what I'm saying? Like, honeymoon period.
Yeah.
She tells me she's pregnant. I'm like,
That same honeymoon period.
like deja vu, what?
But now you're slightly a bit.
Oh yeah. But now, like, it's funny, innit? Hearing that news, like, my response was, a lot more sort of like mature. There was a lot more wisdom involved.
Yeah.
I was, do you know what I'm saying, like 100% excited, looking forward to it. You're already sort of like planning, like, I guess in that instance, like when I first got told, my main kind of like objective, and the only thing I can think of was, I want to reassure her that everything's going to be okay. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't want her to worry, I didn't want her to stress. I wanted to reassure her, like we got this, like, don't watch that. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got this. And again, like, when the few dates that we went on, like beforehand, bless me, I knew from the word go, like, this is
Yeah.
do you know what I'm saying, like, who I want to be with, like, do you know what I mean, like, for the rest of my life, type of thing. Like, There were certain just aspects that just ticked every sort of every box. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, like it was a real happy time. Like it was, you know, quite a contrast in a sense, but it was like everything kind of flowed.
Yeah.
My missus had the home birth.
Okay.
Water birth, home birth. So yeah, everything just flowed, man. It was just real good vibes all the time, like supportive, excitement, lots of just yeah, excitement. Do you know what I mean? I can't really put it in any other way. Like, really.
No, that's good. And then in terms of what's the age gap between two boys?
Yeah, so 10 years.
10 years.
10 years, yeah. 10
Okay.
years, 10 years, 10 years.
All right. And sort of moving forward, has there, in terms of your new partner and the dynamic of you being you having a child from somewhere else as well, so have you had those conversations about obviously stepmom and all of these kind of things?
Yeah.
How have those been, and what's the role that your ex is playing within this? Obviously, you've been in a new relationship and having obviously new family on this side as well, and your son as well. So is he feeling included with what's happening here? Because that's a major thing, is that inclusion once you've obviously moved on and you've started a family here, which is still his family as well. But again, there's an element of my mum's still over there and this is your thing. Yeah. You know.
Yeah. I guess, like, you know, one of the things that stood to me in my partner was, you know, she's really like family orientated. You know what I mean? So I kind of knew the transition was going to be meaningful and purposeful, you know. But yes, of course, like we had loads of conversations, you know what I mean, about it. And being honest, like from a woman's perspective, I don't know what that feels like. Do you know what I mean? Like stepping into a world where you're with someone who already has a child. You know, I don't know what that feels like. So I mean, initially that like some of the conversations were a little bit uncomfortable because to begin with, I was a bit protective in a way, which could seem
protective of who? Of what?
Of Lamel, because I wanted him to feel inclusive. I wanted him to feel like he's a part of, you know,
what was happening here.
What was happening, do you know what I mean? So I wanted to try and translate that over to her, do you know what I mean? But again, that wasn't fair, you know. I needed her to really, because it takes time. It takes time. Like things like this takes time. It's not something that's gonna all of a sudden click. You know, there's gonna be like uncomfortable moments. There's gonna be situations where you're not sure what to do, or there's gonna be awkward moments because it's new, it's fresh. You know, and for both sides. You know, not just my missus, but for them as well. So yeah, we had loads of conversations. I guess I tried to speak to my missus and try to direct her in a direction of try and not go so heavy with the stepmom thing. Try and go with the whole sort of like build a friendship. You know, like you want to build that friendship, you want to build that bond. Because I don't know, I was just thinking, again, I've kind of been in that situation with my dad, like him moving on with, you know, like his partner, and like how it kind of made me feel, that sort of thing. So
I was going to ask you that in terms of obviously now that it's now playing out in your life, in terms of obviously you've got that consciousness of, okay, I've been in my son's shoes. This is what I don't want him to feel like. And so is that part of your thinking in terms of how you're trying to navigate and structure it?
100%, because I've had that experience. Like, so with my dad's partner, you know, when he's moved on from my mum, you know, she was quite, how can I put it? She was quite bullish in a way, like she wanted to really enforce that
herself.
She was a stepmom, that type of thing. And even before
getting to know you and stuff.
Even before knowing her and stuff like that, like my mind is already made up. Like, no one can replace my mum. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, no one can replace my mum. So if you're gonna come to me with, I'm your stepmom, you must do what I say, that type of thing, I'm not hearing that. I'm not hearing that. You know what I'm saying? So because I've gone through that kind of experience, like, I guess that's why I've tried to go down an avenue in terms of like trying to support my missus and saying like, come with a sort of friendship vibe. Do you know what I mean? Like, you want to get to know him, you want to vibe, you want to
build from there.
Build from there. Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like things like that, you can't force it. It's got to be natural. It's got to be authentic. Do you know what I mean? So if you're coming from that kind of angle, you know, then week, month, it kind of slowly kind of falls into place. You know.
Does she have any anxieties of playing that role essentially? And what are some of those potential anxieties? Because sometimes when we've moved on and we have these new relationships or marriage, and obviously we have a child from a previous relationship, it's like we've been accused of not fully understanding what is going on through the minds of our current partners, and the huge responsibility of obviously loving you and obviously now having to be a part of your child's life as well, and all the things. There's many different layers, and again, often, like with me and my wife, one of the things we talk about is like we started this thing called sort of deeper than love, in regards to, is love enough? And what we mean by that is fully understanding, okay, you're with this person, you love this person, and you now have to take on this huge responsibility as well, but also trying to think about what that means for themselves. What does it truly mean to be with a man who has a child? And the day-to-day of what that means in terms of your emotion, the child's emotions, and you being in the middle trying to balance everybody. And again, it's fully having those conversations. Before, we were talking about young men in their early 20s not having those conversations before becoming parents. Now, a lot of people have had children and not been successful in those original relationships. So now people are moving on, but there needs deeper conversations that need to be had in regards to how do we structure this new life in terms of what you had over there and fusing that with what we've got over here. And so there are some conversations that you didn't even know exist until things start happening, start playing out, i.e. you're in the house, for instance. What does discipline look like, for instance? At what point am I okay to say this is wrong? And if I get the attitude back that you'd normally get, what do I do next? Do you know what I mean? It's like, how far can I go? Because you as the parent, you've got license to roam. You can go mad. Do you know what I mean? And then they're just gonna have to suck it up. But if they go mad, it now becomes a bigger issue. It's like, who are you again? Do you know what I mean? I'm not trying to hear that. So in terms of, that's just the most obvious thing that can happen. But then what I'm trying to say, there are always these minute stuff that might not necessarily come up until the fact. And so part of, again, what I want to do is bring those conversations to light for those who might be in the early stages of courting, you know, and one of them has a child. That they can say, okay, these are things that could potentially come up. Am I, in all myself, willing? Am I the type of person that can be with somebody with a child? Because some people essentially want everything to be brand new, in terms of they want to experience everything new themselves. Do you know what I mean? But for instance, you've already had a child, and if they don't have a child, it's like, how are you? How, do you know what I mean? Is this, oh, it's just another day in the park, I've been here, done that type of thing? Or are you now trying to coach her on how to be a parent because you've been there before, which is a big no-no. You can't do that. You know what I mean? So you have to kind of be conscious to let you both experience the new together, if that makes sense, of what you're trying to create. So did any of these conversations happen, or are you similar to me in regards to you're now learning about some of the complexities of, you know, fusing previous relationships and your relationship now? mixed in with you being a father as well.
Yeah, listen, I'm still learning.
Yeah.
You know, it's an ongoing learning, do you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
journey, do you know what I mean? Still learning, and I put my hands up. I'm not gonna get it right all the time, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Listen, we've had the conversations. I'll give you like a little scenario. So, you know, when my missus was growing up, her mum didn't allow them to like go in the fridge and just take what they want, that type of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, if her mum could have like a padlock on the fridge, like her mum would have done it. Do you know what I mean? Because her mum was always brought up like you have to ask before you can go to the fridge. If you want something, you ask, etc., etc. Whereas I wasn't necessarily raised like that. I mean, I was to a certain degree, but then once I hit my teenage years, like I was allowed to go into the fridge and whatnot.
Yeah.
So that's how I've been, and Lamel's been the same. You know, like obviously in the early years he asked, but as you got older and he was able
free.
to like feel free. Yeah, feel free. Your house is
Just don't finish it all in one day.
exactly. Do you know what I mean? Like think about tomorrow.
Yeah,
Like don't just. Do you know what I mean? So my house is your house. Like you know. This is your house.
Yeah.
You know,
Go to the fridge.
Go to the fridge. Now in our house now, because of obviously her experience with her mum, do you know what I'm saying? Lem's obviously like, do you know what I'm saying? Like gone into the fridge. Just gone in there. You know sometimes, and I know we've done it. Do you get me? Like you know sometimes like you can open the fridge and just stare in the fridge. Like, do you get me? Like
You haven't made up your mind
you
yet.
don't know what you want, like, do you know what I mean? You know you want something, you just know what you want. You close it and then maybe go back. Anyway, so Lamel would just go to the fridge, and she kind of found that quite difficult. And it took her a bit of time and adjustment to kind of like get kind of used to that.
Yeah.
And again, that was just through me and her having conversations. You know, and you know her giving me that insight into how she was raised, and then me giving my insight to how I was raised, and we now understand. I now understand why she has that sort of angle on it, and then she understands why I have that angle on it. So, and she can she doesn't have a problem with it, like she doesn't have a problem with it, but it was just something she couldn't quite kind of comprehend. You know what I mean? Like,
so is she more open to carry on as you were, or are you now more having to compromise and say to Lem, you know what? We need to kind of pull back in terms of just going into the fridge and willing. Because either way, it's like it can cause a problem, because with Lem it might be like, but why do I have to do that here? Where you know what I mean? Before it wasn't like that, or obviously how she grew up, she might now try to continue to enforce that. So it's like then you're now stuck in the middle. It's like, oh my God, how do I solve this issue without? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, these are the minute stuff, but you're not going to have these conversations beforehand
100%,
because it doesn't exist until you go into the situation.
Until it happens. 100%. So, it was definitely like a compromise type of thing. I tried to make her feel. I tried to reassure her, like, it's okay, and whatever kind of feelings. Or whatever, however you was brought up, do you know what I'm saying? Like, doesn't necessarily mean that that's how it has to be for our children. Do you know what I mean? Like, type of thing. Like, whether it's whatever kind of feeling that is, we somehow need to try and have some form of control of that. Do you know what I mean? And not sort of use it to, I wouldn't say condemn, but to feel a certain way, type of thing. So it's having that conversation, but then also having that conversation like with my son as well, and saying, like, if you want something, if you want to do something, like, ask if you can, try and ask, and trying to get him to understand, like, why it's important to ask, you know what I mean? Because it does show a form of respect, to a certain degree, and, if you can have respect in a household, then that will translate, do you know what I'm saying, outside of the home. So it's a bit of both, it's a bit of both, He's at an age now where he can definitely, like, understand, like, certain aspects of what's right, what's wrong, respect, morals, principles, values. I mean, these are things that I talk to him to all the time, so he can definitely sort of like understand. And it's it's been good. Like, it's been good.
Yeah, just before we sort of start rounding up, in terms of we kind of know what failure looks like when it comes to fatherhood. What are your parameters for success in terms of, you can look back and say, I'm doing a great job. I've done a great job in terms of how you're bringing up your sons.
Yeah.
Especially with having a new relationship and all of this. What would success look like for you? You know, when you're looking back at everything that you've done, what you've been anxious about, all the concerns that you've had. Yeah.
Well, like success for like my children.
Yeah. In terms of when you can say, you know, it goes beyond I've been a good dad, but the evidence of that is I've put the foundations in place. I was able to do this. I was able to do that. So what does that look like for you in terms of?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so my son, like wherever we go, like, it's mad because I don't necessarily need validation or people to say, oh, you're doing a great job. Do you know what I'm saying? Hey, I'm not saying it's not nice to hear, of course it is. But I do hear that a lot, do you know what I mean? In terms of like, you're doing a great job. And that's through what they see in him in terms of like his actions, his characteristics.
Yeah. He's reflecting.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like how he handles like certain situations. You know, he's very sort of like thoughtful, like he's selfless, like he thinks about others. Like, so a lot of the things that I've installed, and listen, it's not just me, like, do you know what I mean? Like his mum as well has also done that as well, do you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, that's, you know, obviously as the years have gone by, we've really been civilized and really been able to like, sort of come to an agreement of, yeah, this is what we want our son to turn out like, do you know what I mean? So, you know, I know she's doing a great job on her end, you know what I mean, instilling those values, and I'm also as a father doing the same thing, and he is, do you know what I mean, like portraying that, he is actually living what we are, you know, instilling. So, yeah, I mean, I think just, you know, for me, like, sacrifice is a big thing for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, because there's going to be certain times where you're not gonna want to do certain things. Do you know what I'm saying? But for the goodness of, do you know what I mean, like your children, like you're willing to like to do it by any means, like, by any means necessary. And he doesn't even have to know the struggles or the hardship. You know what I mean? As long as he's good, as long as he's in a position where he's able to, you know, succeed and be successful, then, you know, I feel like we're on a right step going forward. You know. So yeah, man, I feel like, you know, already he's talking about careers and what he wants to be. Do you know what I mean? At 13, you know. From a long time, he said about being like an architect.
Oh, nice.
I want to say since he was 8. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? He said that, and he's still saying that to this day. I thought it might have changed, you know, but he's still sort of like.
Need to harness that, definitely.
Yeah, man. Like, you know, if that's what he wants, if that's what he's feeling, then yeah, let's go for it. Do you know what I mean? Let's support him and you know, try and give him any avenue he needs to step up to the next level.
And then with your second son, what are the things that you would say that you would continue to use, or that you've used to raise Lem, that you would definitely use now, in terms of obviously as your son continues to grow as well, in terms of things that you've seen that has worked, and what are the things that you'd say, you know what, I've learned from that first time round, I'm going to avoid that, I'm not going to do that instead.
Yeah, like I feel like it's crazy because every.
Or is that now different because obviously you're still in a relationship with this child's mum, and so there's that input in towards your fatherhood as well, so that might have an impact on being raised slightly differently because it's not co-parenting, we're doing this together.
We're doing this together. Yeah. I feel like that's important. I feel like, you know, parents should have an input, do you know what I mean? Like from both ends. So, you know, I've gone from co-parenting and doing things in my own time, in my own space, to now doing something together, do you know what I mean? Like with someone. Listen, I just try and bring, obviously, what I've learned, my experiences, but then also kind of like allow to express. And I think the key thing is just like conversation. Do you know what I mean? Communication. Like that's key. Like just continue to have conversation, continue to like make agreements together. You know, and sometimes you're not always gonna have an agreement there and then. Do you know what I mean? Like it might take a couple of days or a week or whatnot. But as long as you always can reevaluate and come to a point and like, okay, what are we gonna do? Make that decision together. Then I feel like you're in a good place. So it's crazy because every child's different. Do you know what I mean? So I can't use this. It doesn't necessarily work if I use the same methods with the firstborn. Every child's different. Do you know what I mean? So again, I'm still learning, and there's things I've even forgot. To be honest, do you know what I mean? So it's like we're kind of like learning together in a sense. You know? And the little that I remember, you know, I will sort of like instill it or have a conversation with the missus and whatnot. So yeah, man.
No worries.
Long may it continue.
Definitely.
Continue, do you know what I'm saying?
Clem, you know what? It's a bit controversial.
Yeah, it's controversial. Listen, because you can't do this to me. You can't do this to me. I know what you're gonna say. I know what you're gonna say.
I'm gonna bring it back. So what's happened is that the venue, there's been a power outage, so we haven't been able to record some of the hits that Clem's done. So we can't officially put him last place because that won't be right.
Nah.
All right.
Nah.
So I think you got 88.
Something like that.
You got 88 so far. So what we're gonna do is, so what I wanted to say to you is, I wanted to have a three-way conversation. I'm gonna send you this article. It basically says what I want my partner to know about being a stepmom. Okay. And it's 17 things all these stepmoms have all agreed that they want their husbands or their partners to know about. And so I'm gonna bring another person who's in a similar situation to us, and then we're gonna have a three-way conversation, and we're gonna dissect all of these 17 points and see if we can learn from what's going through their minds as well. And then we can officially, hopefully, re-record your.
You're a good man.
Yeah. Obviously, I don't want no trouble with all Nigerian. You know.
You're a good man. You're a good man.
I don't want no controversy.
Well thought out.
So for now, we're gonna put question mark next to Clem's name because it's not official. But appreciate your time.
No, pleasure, man.
No, great conversation. I really took something from there because everyone's story is different and there's always something to learn, and let's just continue to learn. Let's continue to have that conversation.
100%, man.
Yeah.
That's it.
Sweet.